Hello and welcome everyone to our annual general meeting, streaming to you live from our virtual studio in Leverkusen, Germany. Thank you for tuning in. Allow me to quickly guide you through our agenda for today. First, our Chairman of the Supervisory Board, Dr. Richard Pott, will provide a summary of the year 2022. Following that, our CEO Markus Steilemann and our CFO Thomas Töpfer will talk through the developments of the past year and put our fiscal 2022 results in context. Stay tuned, the event will start shortly.
Meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, als Vorsitzender des Aufsichtsrats der Covestro AG und damit als Versammlungsleiter eröffne ich die 8. ordentliche Hauptversammlung unserer Gesellschaft und begrüße Sie herzlich, auch im Namen von Vorstand und Aufsichtsrat. 2022 war erneut kein gewöhnliches Jahr, für uns alle nicht und nicht für unser Unternehmen. Der russische Angriffskrieg gegen die Ukraine hat das zurückliegende Jahr überschattet und dauert weiter an. Viele andere Probleme sind dadurch entstanden oder wurden verschärft. Einige Stichwörter mögen genügen: Energiekrise, Hunger auf der Welt, hohe Inflation und eine sich deutlich abschwächende Konjunktur. Ein Szenario, in dem unser Unternehmen vor enorme Herausforderungen gestellt war und ist. Aber ich bin froh, dass Covestro bis heute recht gut durch diese
And I'm
schwere
pleased
Zeit,
that Covestro
viele
made it
sprechen
through
ja von
this
einer Polykrise,
difficult time. A lot of people talk about a
Der
polycrisis.
Vorstand wird gleich
The
ausführlich
Board of
schildern,
Management will
wie
go
wir diesen
into more detail
Herausforderungen
as to
begegnen.
how these challenges
Jetzt
can be
möchte ich aber
counted.
zunächst zu
And
den
at this
Themen der
point, I would like
Hauptversammlung
to
sprechen.
turn to the topics of the annual general meeting.
Der Gesetzgeber hat aufgrund
As a
der
result of
fortschreitenden
progress
Digitalisierung
in
und der aus seiner Sicht
digitalization
positiven
and their
Erfahrungen
positive
mit virtuellen
experience with virtual
Hauptversammlungen während der
AGMs during the
Coronavirus-Pandemie
coronavirus
das
pandemic,
Aktiengesetz im Juli
the legislator
2022
adapted the
dahingehend
Stock
angepasst,
Corporation law
dass auch
in July
weiterhin virtuelle
2022
Hauptversammlungen
to
abgehalten
allow
werden können.
virtual
Vor diesem
AGMs to
Hintergrund haben
continue.
Vorstand und
And against this
Aufsichtsrat
background, the Board of
gemeinsam
Management
entschieden,
and the
die ordentliche
Supervisory Board
Hauptversammlung in diesem
decided
Jahr
together
erneut im
to
virtuellen Format
conduct this year's AGM as a
Es handelt sich
virtual
dabei
meeting.
allerdings nicht
We're
mehr
not
das
talking
virtuelle
about the virtual
Format, das wir
format
alle in
that
den
we are
vergangenen 3
familiar with
Jahren
from the last
während
3
der
years during the
Coronavirus-Pandemie kennengelernt haben,
coronavirus pandemic.
sondern es
We're
handelt sich
talking
vielmehr
here
ein
about a
grundlegend erneuertes
new and
und
improved
verbessertes
format
Format
with
mit deutlich
far-reaching
weiterreichenden
shareholders'
Aktionärsrechten.
rights.
Anders
Unlike
als in den vergangenen
past
Jahren
years,
haben Sie,
you,
sehr geehrte
our
Aktionärinnen und
shareholders,
Aktionäre,
will have the
mit dem
possibility
Vorstand
today
und dem
to enter
Aufsichtsrat
into a
Ihres
dialogue
Unternehmens
with the Board
in
of
die
Management
Möglichkeit, in
and the
einen Dialog zu
Supervisory Board
treten,
of
und
your
darüber
company.
freuen wir uns
We
sehr.
are looking forward to that very
Insbesondere
much.
haben Sie heute die Gelegenheit,
Today,
sich
you will
elektronisch
have the
zu Wort zu
possibility
melden und
to
sodann
request the
nach
floor
Aufruf durch mich per
electronically, and when
Videoübertragung
I
live
call
zu
your
uns
name,
und zu
you
Ihren
can speak to
Mitaktionärinnen
us
und Aktionären
live
zu
by
sprechen,
video
sowie
transmission
Ihre
and
Fragen an uns zu
also
richten.
to speak to your
Das
shareholders and to
Verfahren
ask
dafür
your
werde ich
questions.
später noch
I'll
näher
explain the
erläutern.
whole process to you in more detail
An dieser
later
Stelle nur
on.
so viel.
At this point, let me
Mit der
say the
neuen
following.
gesetzlichen
With the new
Grundlage hat der
legal
deutsche Gesetzgeber
situation,
die
the
virtuelle
German
Hauptversammlung mit
legislators
der
have
Präsenzversammlung
made a
weitgehend
virtual
gleichgesetzt und die
AGM basically the
Aktionärsrechte
same
deutlich
as an
gestärkt.
in-person
Die
meeting
neue
and
virtuelle
have strengthened
Hauptversammlung wird
shareholders' rights.
interaktiver,
The new virtual
lebendiger
AGM will
und
be
sicher auch
more
deutlich
interactive,
meinungsstärker, als
it
wir
will
es
be
aus den
livelier,
vergangenen Jahren
and
kennen.
certainly more intense than we've been
Wir sind uns selbstverständlich
used to
bewusst,
in the past
dass
few
nicht
years.
wenige von Ihnen
We are
trotzdem
aware
den
of the
direkten
fact
Kontakt
that
und Austausch vor
not
Ort mit uns
only a
sowie
few of
natürlich
you
auch
really
untereinander schätzen.
appreciate direct
Und seien Sie
contact and
versichert,
dialogue with
auch
us.
wir haben diesen
We
direkten
too,
Kontakt
let
und
me
Austausch
assure
stets
you,
sehr geschätzt
we
und
have
tun dies auch
always
weiterhin.
appreciated such direct
Trotzdem hat
contact
unsere
and exchange
Abwägung
with
für die
you.
diesjährige
But
Hauptversammlung
we
ergeben,
weighed the pros and
dass die
cons for
Vorteile
this
des
year's
virtuellen
AGM,
Formats
and we
überwiegen.
decided that
Zu
the
nennen sind hier unter
advantages
anderem
outweighed the drawbacks. Let me mention
eine
the
höhere
following.
Reichweite,
A
da wir
higher
mit dem
reach,
virtuellen Format
which
auch
means
räumlich
that
weit
with the
entfernte
virtual
Investoren
meeting,
erreichen können,
investors who are
ein
far
deutlich
away
verringerter
can
Aufwand
join
und
us,
deutlich verringerte
much less
Kosten,
time and
die
costs.
Ersparnis von
We
Zeit
save
und
time and costs also for
Kostenaufwand auch
you,
für Sie als unsere
our dear
Aktionärinnen und
shareholders,
Aktionäre, da
because
Sie nicht
you
länger
no
eigens
longer
zur
have to
Hauptversammlung anreisen
travel
müssen
to the
und nicht
AGM.
zuletzt
And
eine
last but
deutlich
not
positivere
least, a
Umweltbilanz,
much
was
more
über eine
positive
Vielzahl von Gesellschaften
economic
gerechnet
impact,
einen durchaus
because
nennenswerten
this is
Beitrag
something
zum
which
Klimaschutz
clearly
ausmachen
makes
kann.
a significant contribution to
Aus eben
climate
diesen Gründen
protection.
schlagen
And for
Vorstand
these
und
reasons,
Aufsichtsrat
the Board of
Ihnen unter dem
Management
heutigen
and the Supervisory
Tagesordnungspunkt
Board
7 vor,
will be
den Vorstand
recommending
in der
that
Satzung zu
we
ermächtigen, auch
authorize
künftige
the
Hauptversammlungen
Board of
im virtuellen
Management
Format
to also
abzuhalten,
allow for
ganz
virtual
ähnlich, wie es
AGMs.
in diesen
This
Tagen
is,
und
as
Wochen
will be the
auch
case
nahezu alle
this
anderen börsennotierten
week and in the
Gesellschaften
coming days
ihren
and weeks,
Aktionärinnen
where
und
other
Aktionären
listed
vorschlagen.
companies are making the same recommendation
Und
to
die
their
Ermächtigung
shareholders.
soll im Einklang
This
mit den gesetzlichen
authorization is
Vorgaben
to be in
befristet
line
werden.
with the
Allerdings
legal
wollen wir
requirements. It will be
dabei
limited in
nicht das
time,
gesetzliche
but we do not
Maximum
want
von
to
5
exhaust
Jahren
the
ausschöpfen.
maximum 5-year
Vielmehr
limit.
schlagen wir Ihnen
Instead,
eine
we are
Ermächtigung mit
recommending
2-jähriger
authorization
Laufzeit
with
vor.
a term of 2
Wir wollen
years.
zeigen,
What we're
dass wir
trying
in
to
den
show
kommenden
you
2
is that in
Jahren
the
mit
next
unserer
2 years,
Ermächtigung
we want to
verantwortungsvoll
deal
umgehen
with this
und für die
authorization in a
Hauptversammlung ein
responsible
Konzept
way.
wählen,
And we
in
will
dem
be
wir Sie
selecting
umfassend
a
informieren
design for our
und Sie
AGM.
Ihre
We will
Aktionärsrechte
inform you
effektiv und
extensively
bestmöglich
and that you
ausüben
can
können.
best and most
Wenn Sie
effectively
unserem
exercise your
Vorschlag folgen,
shareholder rights.
wird
If
der
you go
Vorstand
along
auf
with our
dieser
proposal,
Grundlage
the Board
unter
of Management
Berücksichtigung der
will
jeweiligen
also take into
Tagesordnung
account
auch
the
künftig über das
agenda
Format
items,
der
and they will
jeweiligen
also
Hauptversammlung
decide on
entscheiden.
the format of
Sollte
each
seine
respective
Entscheidung zugunsten
AGM.
des virtuellen
Should we
Formats
decide in
ausfallen,
favor of
so
a
wird der
virtual
Vorstand
AGM,
im
then
zulässigen
the
rechtlichen
Board of
Rahmen
Management,
auch
in
über
line
die
with
genaue
legal
Ausgestaltung,
requirements, will also
insbesondere des
decide on
Fragerechts
the
der Aktionäre
rights
entscheiden.
for the shareholders to ask
heutiger Sicht
questions. The
ist
way we
tendenziell
see things
beabsichtigt, dass die
today,
Aktionären
we
ihre
tend to
Fragen auch
believe that
künftig
in future
während
as
einer
well,
virtuellen
shareholders will
Hauptversammlung
be able to
stellen
ask their
sollen,
questions
so wie wir
during
es auch
a
heute für die heutige
virtual
ordentliche
AGM,
Hauptversammlung
as is the case
2023
today for
unserer
today's regular
Gesellschaft vorgesehen
AGM
haben.
for
Wir
2023.
beabsichtigen also
In
grundsätzlich
other words,
nicht,
we
Sie mit
do
Ihren
not
Fragen
want
in
to
das Vorfeld
refer
der
to
Hauptversammlung zu
questions that you would
verweisen
ask
und
before
während
the
der
AGM
Veranstaltung nur
and
noch
then only
nach-
allow
bzw.
for
Rückfragen
follow-up questions
zuzulassen.
during the meeting.
Diesen Hinweis haben wir
This
Ihnen
is
auch
also
bereits in der
something that we
Einberufungsunterlage
mentioned in the
gegeben,
documents you
denn Sie möchten
received
ja
with
zu Recht
the notice
einen
to
Eindruck
today's
davon
AGM.
gewinnen,
Because of course
wie
you
wir
want to
mit
have
dem
an
uns erteilten
impression
Ermessen
as to how
in
we
Zukunft
will be
voraussichtlich
dealing
umgehen
with
wollen.
the discretion we have been given in the future
Meine
as
Damen und
well.
Herren,
So, ladies and
Nach diesen
gentlemen,
Vorbemerkungen kommen wir
following
nunmehr
these
zu den
preliminary remarks,
Formalien
I'd like to
unserer
come to
heutigen
some of the
Hauptversammlung.
formalities of today's
übertragen die
AGM.
Hauptversammlung aus den
We will be
Geschäftsräumen von
transmitting the
Covestro,
AGM from
konkret aus dem
Covestro's
Gebäude
business
Q24
premises
im Chempark
in
Leverkusen.
Building
Zum
Q24
Präsenzbereich der
in the Chem Park
Hauptversammlung
in
erkläre ich diesen
Leverkusen.
Raum
This room is
G185,
G165,
in
is
dem sich
the
das
in-person
Podium
area where
befindet,
the
sowie die Nachbarräume
podium is, as well as the neighboring
G187
rooms
und
G167 and
163. Gerne möchte
G163.
ich nun
I would
die heute
now
auf dem
like
Podium
to
anwesenden
welcome
Personen
those of
begrüßen.
us here
Begrüße
on
unseren
stage with
Notar,
me. I'd like to welcome
Dr.
our
Mark
notary
Herrmann
public,
mit
Dr.
Amtssitz
Mark
in Köln,
Herrmann, based in
der wie schon in den
Köln,
vergangenen
who,
Jahren
as in the
die
past
Niederschrift
years,
über unsere
will be
heutige
taking the
Hauptversammlung
minutes
führt.
of today's
Der Vorstand
AGM.
ist
The Board of
ebenfalls
Management
vollzählig
is
hier vor
also
Ort auf
here
dem
in
Podium
full.
anwesend. Ich begrüße
I
ganz
would like to
herzlich den
welcome the
Vorstandsvorsitzenden, Herrn
CEO, Dr.
Dr.
Markus Steilemann,
Herrn Dr. Thomas
Dr.
Töpfer,
Thomas Töpfer,
Finanzvorstand und
our
Arbeitsdirektor,
CFO and Labor Director,
Frau Sucheta
Ms.
Govil,
Sucheta
Vorständin für
Govil,
Vertrieb
who
und
is
Marketing,
responsible for
und
sales and
Herrn Dr.
marketing,
Klaus Schäfer,
and Dr.
Vorstand
Klaus
für
Schäfer,
Technologie.
who is our
Der
CTO.
Aufsichtsrat ist
The
ebenfalls
Supervisory
hier vor Ort
Board
in
is
Leverkusen
also
anwesend.
present here in
Die
Leverkusen.
Aufsichtsratsmitglieder
The
befinden
members
sich
of the
aus
Supervisory
Platzgründen
Board are
nicht
in a
mit den
different room
Vorstandsmitgliedern und
due
mir
to a lack
gemeinsam
of
auf dem
space,
Podium. Sie halten sich
but
aber
they
im
will be in
Präsenzbereich
this
auf und
area
können jederzeit
and
mit uns
can
in Kontakt
contact us
treten.
at any
Wir werden die
time.
hier anwesenden Aufsichtsratsmitglieder von Zeit zu
We will
Zeit
be showing
in
you
die
the
Übertragung der
Supervisory
Hauptversammlung
Board
einblenden,
members every now
sodass
and
die Damen
again
und
in
Herren auch
our
für Sie,
transmissions
liebe Aktionärinnen
so
und
that they will be
Aktionäre, sichtbar sind.
visible to you, our shareholders.
Dem Aufsichtsratsmitglied Lise Kingo
Our
war es aus
Supervisory Board
terminlichen
member
Gründen nicht
Lisa
möglich,
Kingo
aus
was
dem
not
Ausland
able
hier
to
nach Leverkusen
travel from
anzureisen.
abroad to
Frau Kingo nimmt
Leverkusen.
daher
That is
virtuell an
why
der
she
gesamten
is
Hauptversammlung
participating
teil, wie auf dem
virtually.
Bildschirm
She will
zu
be
sehen.
in attendance for the whole meeting, as you could see on the
Es fehlt
screen.
lediglich
The
Mark
only one who is
Stotfang,
missing
der
is Mark
erkrankt ist und sich
Stotfang, and he
entschuldigen
has
lässt.
fallen ill and is
Ebenfalls
excused.
hier vor Ort anwesend
We
sind die
also have
Stimmrechtsvertreterinnen Frau Ina Moritz
Ms. Ina
und der
Moritz, who
Stimmrechtsvertreter
is
Dr.
our
Martin Brilleur. Beide wurden von der
proxy,
Gesellschaft
as well
benannt.
as Dr. Martin
Die heutige
Brillow, who were
Hauptversammlung
appointed
wird für
by the
unsere
company.
ordnungsgemäß angemeldeten
Today's
Aktionärinnen und Aktionäre
AGM
und
will
deren
be transmitted
Bevollmächtigte in
live,
Gänze
both by
live in
video
Bild und
and
Ton
audio,
über unser
for all of
Investorportal
the
übertragen.
registered shareholders
Des
via
Weiteren
the
können die
investor
Aktionärinnen
portal.
und Aktionäre
Shareholders
sowie die
and
interessierte
the public at
Öffentlichkeit die
large
gesamte
can also
Hauptversammlung
follow the entire
frei zugänglich
AGM
live über unsere
live
Internetseite
on our
verfolgen.
website.
Auch über verschiedene
And
Kanäle
also
sozialer
various
Medien
social
wird die
media
Hauptversammlung
channels will
übertragen.
also be
Dort
transmitting our
jedoch nur bis
AGM. But this
einschließlich
would
der
only
Reden des
be
Vorstandes.
up to and including the Board of Management's
Die für die
speeches.
Live-Übertragung notwendigen
The
technischen
necessary
Vorkehrungen haben wir
technical requirements
zusammen
for
mit
our
den von
live
uns
transmission
beauftragten
were
externen Dienstleistern
carefully
sorgfältig
checked
geprüft.
by our
Daher gehen wir
service
davon aus, dass
providers,
die heutige
and we
virtuelle
assume that
Hauptversammlung
today's
technisch
AGM will
ordnungsgemäß
run
durchführen zu können.
smoothly in technical
Der Notar hat
terms.
sich die
The notary
Technik
public
ebenfalls
also
genau erläutern
took a look
lassen
at the
und sich von
technology
den
involved
Vorkehrungen selbst
and
ein Bild
is
machen können.
aware of the provisions that have been taken.
Allerdings können
However,
die Bild- und
with
Tonübertragungen
video and
der
audio
virtuellen
transmissions,
Hauptversammlung
there can
und die
also be
Verfügbarkeit des Investorportals
fluctuations also with
Schwankungen
regard to
unterliegen,
the
auf welche
availability
die
of the
Gesellschaft
investor
keinen
portal.
Einfluss
And this
hat.
is something that
Sollten
the
technische
company has
Probleme
no influence
auftreten,
on. Should there be any
überprüfen Sie
technical
bitte
problems,
Ihre
please check
Internetverbindung
your internet
und
link
aktualisieren
and
oder wechseln Sie
update or
gegebenenfalls
change
den
perhaps
Browser.
your browser.
Sollte die
If
Übertragung
the
dennoch
transmission
weiterhin unterbrochen
continues to
sein,
be
haben Sie
interrupted,
bitte ein paar
then
Minuten
just be
Geduld. Sofern die
patient for a few
Störung der
minutes.
Übertragung von hier
If
ausgeht,
the
müssten wir
disturbance is at
gegebenenfalls auf
our
unsere
end,
Ersatzsysteme
then of course we might
zurückgreifen
use
und
our
werden Sie in einem
fallback
solchen Fall
system.
über
And if
unser
that is the case,
Investorportal
we will
entsprechend
inform you
informieren.
via our investor portal.
Sollte es zu einer
If there
Tonstörung
are
kommen, werden wir
problems
zudem
in the
Hinweise
audio
im Bild
transmission,
einblenden.
we will
Umgekehrt
show
würden wir Ihnen im
information
Fall einer
in the
reinen
video
Bildstörung
transmission,
über die
and
Tonübertragung
conversely, if there is a
weitere
problem
Informationen zukommen lassen.
with the
Eine vollständige Verbindung
other
sollte
transmission, then of course we will try to make sure that the complete transmission is reestablished as quickly as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, in accordance with the transitional requirements and provisions for virtual AGM, which are convened up until and including the 31st of August 2023, and they decided also with the approval of the Supervisory Board on the 16th of December 2022, that this AGM will take place without the physical presence of the shareholders or their representatives, and that this will be a virtual AGM. The requirements for a virtual AGM have thus been fulfilled. The major reasons for this decision is something that I described to you at the beginning. With regard to granting certain rights is something that I will talk about a bit later. But right now, I'd like to note the following. The notice to today's virtual AGM was published in the Federal Gazette on the 7th of March 2023, including the agenda and the draft resolutions from the Board of Management and the Supervisory Board in due form and time. The documents are with the Notary Public and will be included in the minutes. We did not receive any requests for additions to the agenda, nor did we get any counter motions or election proposals. The company received a statement which was published by the due date in the investor portal and on our website. Since the 7th of March 2023, when the notice was published, all of the required documentation and information was made available on Covestro AG's website. The documents also will be available for the entire duration of today's virtual AGM. One example of all of the required documents is here in this room with Dr. Herrmann, our Notary Public. Ladies and gentlemen, so that you can ask your questions on updated information, we have also published the CEO's and CFO's speeches, as well as my own speech. 1 week before the AGM, these were published on the company's website. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, we will also, as required by law, be keeping a list of participants. Here you will see the company's representatives, proxies, as well as the shareholders represented by them with their equity holdings. In addition, the list of participants, in accordance with the new legal requirements, will list all of the shareholders or their representatives who have registered for today's virtual AGM via our investor portal. The list of participants is available here in the meeting room, and it is available on the investor portal for the shareholders who have registered via the investor portal. It will be updated on an ongoing basis whenever necessary. I will be announcing the number of attendees during the course of the AGM. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders who registered in due form and due fine were able to exercise their voting rights prior to the AGM, either by absentee ballot or by granting authority and instructions to the company's representatives. And during this meeting as well, we also made it possible to vote electronically, and you can also give instructions. The possibility to authorize representatives from the company via the investor portal or to give them instructions will be open until the beginning of the vote. The possibility to vote electronically via the investor portal will last a few minutes longer until I, as the chair of this meeting, conclude the vote. When we get to the vote, I will then draw your attention once again to the relevant points in time. But I would like to call upon you now to vote in a timely manner. And information on voting can be found in the notice to this meeting as well as on Covestro's website. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, this year, unlike previous years, we have the possibility for you to request the floor using a button in the main menu of the investor portal. Now I'll explain to you the most important aspects, both for the content of your contributions as well as the formal process which we want to use to conduct today's discussion. First of all, let me talk about the content. Please, your contribution should be such as would be the case in an in-person meeting. Only speak to items on the agenda, as well as, if need be, to the bylaws, and do not digress to irrelevant items. I'd also like to ask you to be brief in the interest of the other shareholders who may also want to take the floor. As a guideline, I would like to mention a period of 10 minutes. I'd like to make one point clear. This is not a formal speaking time restriction or limitation. It is a non-binding request. But I would be very grateful if, in the interest of everyone concerned, you could focus on the 10-minute guideline. We will be using a clock to show how long someone has been speaking. As chairman, I'm called upon to make sure that our AGM is conducted in accordance with the law and appropriately. This means that I can also formally limit your speaking time should this appear necessary during the course of our AGM, in particular with regard to the number of requests for the floor that have not yet been dealt with. Today's discussion will be a general discussion, as you are familiar with from earlier in-person meetings. So you will have the possibility to discuss all agenda items, and you do not have to sign in for individual agenda items. As chair, I am also called upon to decide upon how you should ask your questions. As in the notice, I would like to note that questions can only be asked via video transmission. If you want to ask a question, please sign in via the investor portal saying that you want to take the floor, and then you can decide whether you want to speak, ask questions, or both. Similarly, you have to request the floor if during today's meeting you want to present a motion, whether this deals with the Articles of Association or if you want to present an election proposal. When you request the floor in the investor portal, you can also inform us that you want to present a motion. And I would be grateful if you were to do so, so I can look and see if your motion should perhaps be given priority in giving you the floor. And now I'd like to give you some technical details for your request for the floor and how we are going to conduct our discussion. When you request the floor, you will be put on our list of speakers. The speakers will then be divided up into groups of about 5 people max. These 5 people will then be called out before we begin our discussion. I'll call out your names, and I'll ask you to be ready for a test for your audio and visual transmission. We will then interrupt the AGM for about 5 minutes, and during this period, our technical team will carry out the technical test with the speakers that I have called out. Then we will continue the AGM, and I will call out the speakers one after another and give you the floor. You will then make your contribution via video transmission, and then you can also be seen and heard by your shareholders as well in the public transmission of the AGM. We will collect questions and then prepare the answers. At the end of the last presentation, we will then have a first round of answers, and then I will call out the next speakers and we'll repeat the same procedure until all of the speakers have been given the floor and have been able to ask their questions and all of the answers have been given. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to mention that as of the beginning of this event, up until the end, until I conclude this meeting, that you can object to decisions taken by the AGM. You will find a button on the main menu in the investor portal. The notary public will then accept any objections we receive, and these will be included in the minutes to the AGM. So that should suffice on formalities. Ladies and gentlemen, before we turn to the agenda, I would like to briefly review the past year as seen by the Supervisory Board. As I said, 2022 was primarily a year of hardship and concerns. After decades of peace and stability, war has returned to Europe. As a result, the energy supply situation has drastically worsened, with major impacts on our industry and our company. This includes the weakening of the economic environment. The overall situation where Covestro has been confronted, so to speak, with a twofold challenge, and still is confronted with this. On the one hand, we had to do everything we could in order to maintain operations and business, and on the other hand, in these difficult times, our company also had to continue pursuing its strategic goals and growth opportunities. We were successful at both. Ladies and gentlemen, Covestro managed the energy crisis, which reached its peak last fall and last winter. Thanks to the excellent dedication and flexibility of our employees. So we adjusted very quickly to the situation. We reduced our energy requirements, improved our efficiency, and in some sites, we switched from gas to oil as our fuel. Strategically speaking, we stayed on course, and we continued to focus on circularity, our major vision. So that means we have the right approach in order to both maintain our livelihood on Earth and to combine this with sustainable added value. A milestone in sustainability strategy at Covestro are our ambitious climate targets, which our company published last year. By 2035, our goal is to be climate neutral in terms of operations. This applies, first of all, for our direct greenhouse gas emissions, which we produce in our own production. This is where we're talking in particular about the very climate-intensive substance nitrous oxide. Also, the emissions from energy sources which we receive from third parties. These are to be reduced to net zero. But that's not enough. We're also working on a climate goal for indirect emissions from procured raw materials, which would be in up and downstream processes in the added value chain. Climate neutral and circular. This is what our product range is becoming more and more at Covestro. Our materials and solutions last year were in demand last year. However, as a result of the weak economy, the volumes declined. But because we were able to achieve higher selling prices on the market, the sales figure grew to a record number. However, the situation was different when it came to profit due to the increased energy and raw material costs and one-off effects, as well as exceptional impairments in non-current assets and impairments for deferred tax assets. We had negative net income for the first time. That's why, for the first time, we will not be able to pay you a dividend. Shareholders, we regret this, and we hope that you can bear with us. But I am convinced that our company, due to its good position, will be in the position to pick up on the payments that we had in previous years. And now I'd like to mention one more thing. The negative net income for 2022 is not something that only led to no dividend payment. The difficult economic situation at Covestro also meant that the Board of Management and the employees will not be receiving an annual bonus for fiscal 22. The CEO, Dr. Markus Seilemans, the CFO, Dr. Thomas Töpfer, will be going into more detail on this when they talk about the course of business and strategic development. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the agenda as published in the notice. We will begin with agenda item 1. This relates to the financial statements and reports. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to hand over to the chairman of Covestro AG, Dr. Markus Steilemann.
Thank you, Dr. Pott. And now, we, the members of the Board of Management, also want to extend a very warm welcome to you, our shareholders. We're delighted that you're participating in our annual general meeting, and we hope that you, your friends and family are doing well in these difficult times. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, the last time we met, Russia had just launched its war against Ukraine. The terrible carnage has already been going on for over a year now, and it has led to many other serious problems. But we mustn't give up, and we don't have to either, because despite all the misery and difficulties, we also keep seeing rays of hope, ways forward, and solutions at the political level, in our personal lives, and at our company, Covestro, of course. Courage, confidence, and solidarity. That's what will take us forward. Decisive, resolute action is what's required now. This is because there is need for action virtually everywhere. First and foremost, the war that is raging less than 2,000 kilometers away from us has to be stopped. We also have to deal with its many consequences, which are affecting us all very directly. There's the energy crisis in Germany and the rest of Europe, which is causing problems for each and every one of us. It is also hitting our company and the entire industry, the chemical sector. The same applies to the high rate of inflation, which is likewise a consequence of Russia's war of aggression. Amidst all of this, we have an ailing global economy. Fortunately, the coronavirus pandemic is receding, but it has left deep scars. That is anything but a favorable environment for Covestro. The spate of crises had a massive impact on our business in 2022, and our expectations for the current year have been dampened accordingly. But there is no reason to be pessimistic, ladies and gentlemen. On the contrary, we're looking ahead with confidence. Right now, we can see that our company has the right setup, that we took the right steps in 2022, and we will keep doing precisely this in the future. The redefinition of our company, on which I reported to you at the last AGM, has also played its part. It has taken Covestro's efficiency and customer proximity to the next level. Financially, we are on solid ground, and our policy of producing in the regions and for the regions makes us more independent from global supply chains. Overall, our strategy is heading onward and upward. Its name, Sustainable Future, shows that we are looking way ahead into a positive, sustainable future for our company and for society as a whole. We take in a lot more in this process than just overcoming the current crises and problems, which are known to pose enormous long-term challenges such as climate change, the overexploitation of natural resources, or damage to the environment. The past year, with its droughts and floods, demonstrated what humanity has to expect. We at Covestro are helping to deal with many of the problems. With our products, technologies, and solutions, we systematically address global trends such as sustainable mobility and renewable energy. We're gearing our entire company completely to become fully circular while pursuing ambitious climate targets. I will come back to that in more detail later on. This is how we will fulfill our company's purpose of making the world a brighter place and put ourselves in the ideal position to achieve future growth. As I said, more on this in a moment. My dear shareholders, I now want to delve a little deeper into an issue that concerns us all, the energy crisis. As you know, we need a lot of electricity to produce chemicals and plastics, and also steam, which we mainly generate from gas. These resources have become extremely scarce all of a sudden, and a lot more expensive than they were already in Europe, especially in Germany. Our energy costs have almost tripled since 2020. We reacted swiftly and decisively to this situation, thanks to the commitment and inventiveness of many colleagues. They have already made quite a few adjustments within the company, with great success, I must add. Let me give you one example, chlorine. We need this chemical for 2/3 of our products. We make it ourselves, although this process consumes large quantities of electricity. For this reason, experts from various areas at Covestro got together to identify potential savings. The result was a new management model for our chlorine plant in Leverkusen, Germany. It allows us to estimate how electricity prices will change during the course of a month. Now we can identify to the day and minute the most cost-effective time to operate the plant. This pays off, as it allows us to save costs in the mid-tens of thousands every week. A great team effort that's made me very proud, and only one of many ideas and measures with which we responded to the energy crisis, decisively, flexibly, and collaboratively. This also applies to the many other challenges. All of Covestro's 18,000 employees showed fantastic commitment and did excellent work in 2020, which was a difficult year, in countless large and small projects alike. For this, all of us on the board of management owe them the greatest respect, and we want to offer them our heartfelt thanks. 2022 demonstrated once more that we are a great team that works in solidarity around the world, not least thanks to our exceptional corporate values: curious, courageous, and colorful. Ladies and gentlemen, this set of values and the commitment and know-how of our colleagues also helped us in the past year to tackle the adverse economic conditions. The economy has experienced a significant downturn. Global growth halved in 2022, affecting almost all major industries that we supply. The decline in global demand is slowing down growth in the core industries to which we deliver our products. The construction sector expanded by just 1.2% in 2022. The electrical, electronics, and household appliances sector shrank by over 2/3. The furniture industry was also down by almost 4% in 2022 compared to the previous year. Only the automotive industry is performing well. Growth more than doubled here. Overall, therefore, Covestro faced economic headwind in 2022. Despite that, we increased our sales by 13% to a new record high. This is unfortunately not matched by earnings, where we were only able to cushion the massive rises in energy and raw material prices to a limited extent. This is why our operating result, or EBITDA, was down almost 48%. Because of one-off factors, our bottom line showed a loss for the first time ever. But, and this is something I want to emphasize once again, financially, our company, your company, remains very stable. Ladies and gentlemen, we again had a cash surplus, referred to as free operating cash flow, in the crisis year 2022. Simply put, we still have cash on our books. last weeks, we published our results for the first quarter. Despite a decline in demand, the financials for the first quarter were much better than anticipated, as shown by our current earnings. Our resolute implementation of our strategy and measures show that we're on the right path. For this, I would like to thank all our employees for the commitment and dedication in the last few months. We have achieved a milestone on our own steam. Together, we will continue to do all we can to master the challenges in the coming weeks and months. Our CFO, Thomas Töpfer, will now share some deeper insights into our financial results, and he will outline our expectations for the current year. Having said that, over to you, Thomas.
Ladies and gentlemen, from me as well, a very warm welcome. It's a great pleasure for me to present to you the results for the past fiscal year. Markus Steilemann has already given you some context for the recessionary environment in Europe and high market volatility due to the uncertain situation of power and gas supplies. This trend could not be offset by growth in other markets. Since we were able to pass some of the cost increase to customers, group sales rose by 13% to almost 18 billion euros despite lower volumes. This helped us to generate the highest sales in our company's history. As already indicated, we were only partially able to pass on the higher costs. As a result, the very high energy and raw material prices led to a considerable negative pricing delta between selling and raw material prices. While energy and raw material prices kept going up in the course of the year, the options for passing on these prices became increasingly limited. What is more, there was a negative volume effect of around 5%. On the bottom line, our EBITDA at the end of fiscal 2022 totaled 1.6 billion euros after 3.1 billion euros being posted at the end of the previous year. Let's now take a look at our two segments. The negative pricing delta affects the performance materials segment in particular. Due to the commodity type nature of its products, the segment is particularly highly exposed to changes in demand in the market. This limits the opportunities for passing on the energy and raw material prices in a recessionary environment. The sharp decline in the EBITDA margins brings this into sharp focus. While sales were up, EBITDA went down 63% year-on-year to a total of 951 million euros. We anticipate that the year 2023 will remain challenging for performance materials. Thanks to its strong specialization, the Solutions and Specialties segment, on the other hand, benefits from closer customer relations and better options to pass on the high costs resulting from rising energy and raw material prices. This segment's greater resilience is reflected by an almost stable EBITDA margin. Despite a decline in volume, strong sales growth also led to higher earnings. An important operational lever in this context is the fact that the successful integration of the resins and functional materials, RFM, business is happening faster than planned. Despite the robust performance in the year 2022, Solutions and Specialties will continue to face challenges in the current year. The financial performance of the two segments led to an overall decrease in our EBITDA to 1.6 billion euros. In the past year, we also had exceptional impairments of non-current assets totaling 463 million euros and impairment losses on deferred tax assets from tax loss carryforwards totaling 255 million. These one-time factors led to a negative income. Since the distribution of dividends for fiscal 2020, our dividend policy has specified that between 35% and 55% of net income should be distributed as dividend. Accordingly, we paid a record dividend of €3.40 per share for fiscal year 2021, and, again in line with our dividend policy, will not pay any dividend for fiscal year 2022. As our bonus system, the PSP system, also focuses on the overall performance of the company, our board of management and employees will not receive a bonus payment for the past year as a result of the negative group income. A look at free operating cash flow also highlights just how challenging the past fiscal year was. Here, the sharp decline in EBITDA is reflected mainly from Q2 onward. We countered this trend specifically with consistent working capital management, and in doing so, we were able to generate a positive effect of 312 million euros, as you can see here. In addition, we had capital expenditure totaling 832 million euros. Of course, we also invested in maintaining and improving existing plants in fiscal year 2022, with a view to positioning our production in the best possible way and offering our employees safe and modern workspaces. Moreover, we invested in expanding our production capacity. Markus Steilemann will tell you more about this in just one moment. As you can see, income taxes totaling 538 million euros were also incurred in fiscal year 2022. Now, this amount was driven predominantly by a geographical mix that was unfavorable from a tax perspective. The other effects item relates primarily to the bonus payment for fiscal 2021, which turned into a cash outflow in Q2 of 2022. That means that for the year as a whole, we had a positive cash flow of 138 million euros. This positive cash flow is clear evidence that we are managing challenging times. We have a solid balance sheet and a strong liquidity base. We are increasingly combining our financing and sustainability strategies, and by doing so, continue to focus on sustainable growth. On the 13th of April, we also published advance KPIs with 286 million euros for the predicted EBITDA, and we have therefore exceeded our estimates for the capital market, and that despite low demand in the first quarter. Thus, the first 3 months of 2023 were much more successful than we had imagined at the beginning of the year. Shareholders, we are in a very good position to deal with the current economic situation, and we are looking with confidence towards the future. And now back to Markus Steilemann.
Thomas, thank you for your commentary. It means that 2023 will be another challenging year, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm sure that we will once again adeptly handle the challenges by pulling out all the stops to get through the current crises and by systematically pursuing our strategy, because it has clearly put us on the right track. What this means is that we are seizing the major opportunities associated with the global megatrend towards comprehensive sustainability. The world must become greener and smarter, safer and more livable. We at Covestro help achieve this by contributing what we do particularly well: highly sustainable, innovative plastics. They are tailored exactly to the needs of many key industries, and they are bundled in 2 segments, one being tailored plastics based on innovation and customized solutions. The other is the business with standard materials, where cost efficiency is one of the focal points. I must emphasize that both business lines are very attractive and full of potential. And this is because they address important global trends and the needs of many key industries, be it the energy industry, be it the mobility sector, or the construction industry. They are all going through far-reaching transformations in their quest to become sustainable. For this, they need the right materials, materials that we provide in close consultation with our customers and continuously improve. It means that we are literally on course for sustainable growth. Let me give you a few examples to illustrate this. The energy industry. This sector is by far the largest source of greenhouse gases that are damaging the climate. And this alone is reason enough for the industry to make a rapid transformation away from fossil fuels, such as coal, to renewable sources, such as solar and wind. At the same time, many other sectors, including the chemical industry, will need more power in the future, and this will also have to be green. But renewable energy is still not cost-effective enough to compete with fossil fuels. This is where our products and solutions come in. For wind turbines, for example, we have developed a polyurethane infusion resin that can be used to make rotor blades lighter, longer, and stronger, and to increase yields. And their production is becoming more efficient at the same time. As a result, the production costs of rotor blades have declined by 8%. Electricity production costs could fall by 2.4% in total if Covestro materials were used. This harbors major potential for manufacturers of wind turbines and operators of wind farms. Ladies and gentlemen, our products are not only driving the energy revolution, but are also supporting the sea change in mobility. The future belongs to alternative drives, such as the electric motor. Here, too, our materials are literally paving the way. Our company's polycarbonates make electric vehicles lighter and, in turn, increase their range. And they are extremely useful in battery cases and charging stations, making them safe, robust, and cost-effective. Apart from electric drives, we also have an eye on other major mobility topics. The trend towards autonomous driving is one example that can offer countless advantages such as greater safety and comfort. What's more, there is an increasing desire for individualization, which is also reflected in mobility. To this end, we are developing innovative materials and concepts for functioning, fully networked vehicle interiors. Ladies and gentlemen, shareholders, another very topical example of sustainable growth comes from the area of packaging. As you know, there are clear regulations, especially in Europe, relating to the huge amounts of packaging waste and the negative consequences this has on the environment. To deal with this, much more waste will have to be recycled. To date, this has worked best when paper is used as the packaging material. For this purpose, it has to be treated first, for example, to prevent it from letting moisture penetrate. Here, our company also offers suitable products. We have developed a special coating resin, which gives the paper the properties of plastic so that it keeps moisture out, for example. What makes it so special is that it can still be recycled as paper. Our innovative material is particularly sustainable for two reasons. It contributes not only to closing material loops in the packaging industry, but is itself manufactured according to circular economic principles from raw materials that are in part plant-based. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to touch on another key sector that needs our materials in order to become more sustainable. I'm referring to the construction industry, which is responsible for around 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions. It is therefore understandable that only climate-neutral buildings are to be built in the EU in the future. At the same time, millions of existing apartments and houses will require energy-efficient refurbishment. This will drive up demand for efficient insulation. This is because well-insulated buildings release little heat and keep the cold outside. Rigid polyurethane foam is a particularly good insulant. We at Covestro supply the main components for it, including the substance MDI. My dear shareholders, we therefore expect demand for MDI to increase. We are getting ready by ramping up our production capacities. At our site in Tarragona, Spain, we commissioned a new large-scale plant where MDI is produced in a particularly environmentally friendly way a week ago. This is achieved using a special technology that Covestro has developed together with a partner company. I now want to come back to chlorine. We need chlorine for MDI, and our innovative technology allows us to produce it using 25% less electricity. This means, in turn, that the new plant in Spain will avoid up to 22,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions per year. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we continue to invest in our production network in these challenging and uncertain times, including at our site in Maptaput in Thailand. We recently held the groundbreaking ceremony for a new plant there, which will produce specialty films from polycarbonate. They are used above all in ID documents, car displays, and electronic devices, and there is increasing demand for them in the Asia-Pacific region. The materials for these films are in part based on organic waste. Alternative raw materials and energy-saving production are only two examples of the extent to which we focus on sustainability internally as well. Here, we have set ourselves new ambitious goals in 2022. We want to make Covestro's operations climate neutral by as early as 2035. This means that by then, greenhouse gas emissions from our own production and from purchased energy are to amount to net zero. We took a step in this direction. We reduced our emissions of CO2 equivalents by around 10% last year. At the same time, we continue to make progress in the transition to renewable energy. It now accounts for 12% of our total power consumption. Our target for this year is up to 18%. We are achieving this above all by negotiating direct agreements with energy suppliers. At our Shanghai site, China, we, for example, are already able to meet around 30% of our annual electricity demand with wind and solar energy. Moreover, Shanghai and all other major sites around the world have now attained certification under the important, internationally recognized ISCC Plus standards. This is a central requirement for what is referred to as mass balancing. This is an arithmetic system for attributing recycled and bio-based raw materials to end products. It is similar to the familiar principle of working out the proportion of green electricity from the grid. This will allow us to drive our largest project, the circular economy, with which we are aligning the entire company. My dear shareholders, for us, becoming fully circular is the key to solving many global challenges. Circularity will help humanity conserve the Earth's dwindling resources, protect the environment, and achieve climate neutrality. At the same time, new ways of creating value are being uncovered, which combine sustainability and growth. At Covestro, we have therefore committed ourselves wholeheartedly to the circular economy. Something like this cannot, of course, be done overnight at the push of a button. We're just at the beginning of a long journey. But we have already taken a number of promising steps, and we will rigorously stay the course until we have turned our vision into reality. However, the transition to the circular economy is not a project that can be completed in isolation. What we need is the comprehensive transformation of society as a whole. The economy must and will change, and we as consumers must adapt our behavior. Product labels can also help raise awareness of the circular economy in the general population. They will create acceptance and trust. Covestro therefore introduced a label in 2022 that identifies circular materials and technologies. The new label is called CQ, derived from circular intelligence. We use it to identify products that contain a minimum of 25% alternative raw materials. In the same way as the label for organic products in supermarkets, they now also give our customers a choice. Ladies and gentlemen, the use of non-fossil fuels is one of the pillars of the circular economy. The other is recycling products and waste. Let me illustrate how important it is to recycle using an everyday product that I presume all of you have at home: mattresses. In Europe, around 40 million of them are discarded every year. If you laid them next to each other, they would cover the circumference of the Earth twice. These 40 million mattresses normally end up in waste incineration plants or landfills, even though old mattresses are nothing other than a valuable raw material for new ones. To recycle mattresses rather than let them go to waste, that too is one of our aims at Covestro, ladies and gentlemen. To be more precise, it's about what's inside, the foam under the cover, which makes the mattress comfortable. This foam is often made of polyurethane, the versatile material for which we produce and continually improve the key components. Polyurethane has many advantages, but also one drawback. It can't be recycled, or at least not so far. But this is changing. We've also got off to a successful start in this area. Together with partners, we have developed innovative technology for recovering both core raw materials. We are doing it through a chemical process by breaking the foam down into its molecules, which can then be used to produce new foam and new mattresses. The framework for this groundbreaking project is provided by EvoCycle CQ, our program for innovative recycling. As part of this process, we want to advance chemical recycling, as I've just mentioned. That is a new approach for which we therefore need the right conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, another promising approach to taking the circular economy forward is microscopic, but can have a huge effect. I'm referring to industrial biotechnology, which involves the use of microorganisms and enzymes, a topic of the future that is also the focus of research and development at Covestro. In the past year, we intensified our biotechnology activities and established a dedicated research group. Here, experts are working on using enzymes specifically for plastic recycling. In addition, the enzymes are intended to help treat wastewater and break plastic waste down fully in the natural environment. Biotechnology has already helped us achieve a breakthrough. We can use this technology to produce the chemical aniline entirely from plants. We need aniline to produce MDI, the key insulant component I spoke about earlier, as you might recall. And with insulins, we in turn address the megatopic of sustainable building. And so we've come full circle. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm coming to the end of my presentation. Let me summarize. Stability. Our Sustainable Future strategy and the solid balance sheet give us a firm foundation, even in challenging times. Sustainable growth. We're gearing our business systematically towards areas of the future, such as sustainable building, new forms of mobility, and renewable energy. Circular economy. We're forging ahead to make circularity a global guiding principle as a key to solving many of the challenges we face both now and in the future. So, our company is on the right track. We stand firm. We create value, and we produce benefits. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for joining us today for our virtual annual general meeting. Don't worry if you missed anything. You can always revisit the recording of this live stream or head over to our website for more details. Got questions? Feel free to post them in the comment section below, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks again for being part of our event, and we look forward to seeing you next time.